Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's webinar from Spec Innovations, What are Model-Based Reviews? My name is Sarah Craig, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Let's go over some quick housekeeping before we get started. For those of you who may not be aware, Spec Innovations provides systems engineering services and solutions to the aerospace, defense, and intelligence communities. Our flagship software, InnoSlate, provides users with an all-in-one systems engineering software solution with requirements management, analytics, modeling, simulation, and analysis of alternative tools. We help organizations securely collaborate on critical projects throughout the product or systems lifecycle. During the presentation, feel free to send us questions using the panel on the right, and we will get them answered in the question and answer part of the webinar. The webinar is being recorded, and we will make it available to you after the live presentation, so please be sure to keep a look at it in your inbox. Now, I would like to introduce you to our presenters, Dr. Stephen Dam, and our guest presenter, Dr. Jerry Sellers. Today, they will be explaining what model-based reviews are and how to perform them. Dr. Dam is the president and founder of Spec Innovations. He has been involved with research, experiments, operations analysis, software development, systems engineering, and training for more than 40 years. Dr. Dam participated in the development of C4ISR architecture framework and DoD architecture framework. He has also received an expert systems engineering professional certification from INCOSE. He currently is applying systems engineering techniques to various DoD, DOE, and commercial projects. Dr. Jerry Sellers is the president of Teaching Science and Technology, Inc., TSTI. He is the author of Understanding Space, An Introduction to Astronautics, a contributing author and editor of Applied Space Systems Engineering, and a contributing author of Human Spaceflight Analysis and Design. He has over 30 years of space systems experience, including guidance and onboard navigation officer in Space Shuttle Mission Control, assistant professor of astronautics at the U.S. Air Force Academy, and chief of astronautics for the Air Force European Office of Aerospace Research and Development. He is an associate fellow at AIAA and the former chairman of the Space Systems Technical Committee. Jerry is a certified Scaled Agile Program Consultant and a corresponding member of the International Academy of Astronautics. He is also an adjunct professor at Stevens Institute of Technology. TSTI is a respected name in systems engineering workforce development for over 25 years. TSTI is a veteran-owned small business that assists companies and organizations who wish to improve their systems engineering skills as they relate to the space and other domains. And now I'll hand over the controls to Dr. Dam and Dr. Jerry Sellers as we get started.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that intro for us, and welcome Jerry in this. Jerry's going to come in a little bit. I'm going to give you a little bit of the background and maybe the theory part, and he's going to give you a little bit more of a practical experience that he's had with conducting model-based reviews. So this is kind of a topic of interest for people for some time now. We've actually been conducting these reviews for at least 5-6 years now. And so we do have a guide for it that's available on our website. If you go to innoslate.com/resources, on the resources page, there is actually a user's guide as well. So let's just talk a little bit about what is a model-based review. You know, why should you even do it this way? And how to capture criteria, document content, reviewing the models, and then cross-project collaborations and redactions, and a little bit about adding artifact workflow and collaboration. And then at that point, Jerry will come in and do his presentation. So what is a model-based review? Well, basically the idea is, you know, historically what we've done is we've developed documentation you know, in a product and in an output in like usually something like Microsoft Word or something, and people will go in, make edits and changes and things like that. Well, that's great, except for the fact that that change cycle ends up taking a lot of time. It takes a long time to create the documentation from the information base that you have. Even if you are using a database tool that outputs reports, you still go through and do a significant edit cycle and things like that. And if there are changes to the diagrams and things like that that are in that document, then you have to go back and make it in the original source. The idea of the model-based review is, since we have the documentation capability within the tool, why not just use the tool to be the source of the information? And so this gives us a mechanism for doing that. But it does require that the software support that kind of approach and activity and give people a relatively familiar reviewing environment to work with. We've done that with InnoSlate, and we'll show you how. So the why MBRs, again, we want to significantly simplify the review process. It costs a lot of money to do a review. People only see the few days maybe that they focus on doing the review itself. That's the short time. Usually you have a stop point where you publish the information, and oftentimes you're not doing any work because you can't progress it till you've done the review. And after the review, you're adjudicating the comments, making sure everything's is comfortable. So for a major review, this could be like a month period or longer that this goes on. This is a month of downtime often for much of your staff. It's a great time to take a vacation, I guess. But you'd think. But no, in fact, it's non-productive time. It actually, the staff is working very, very hard through that whole process. So if we can simplify that process and make it more of an in-process kind of review approach, that streamlines that time and saves that money significantly. So also what this gives us ability to create better traceability throughout the life cycle. And clearly this is a pathway to what people want to do in digital engineering. And that's one of the reasons this topic's gotten hot. So one of the first things you do is you want to capture the criteria. So what is the review criteria? So the example I'm showing you here is actually out of the DAU website for a milestone decision document identification for a particular one, and I'm trying to remember which one this was, and tying it into that list of things that they want to see. And these are specific documents they're looking for, okay? So once you have the rubric or the score sheet that you're working from, you can import that into the InnoSlate by using the import analyzer. Again, very easy to do. So you can capture each one of these. And in fact, hopefully what people have done is build these documents as they've gone in InnoSlate. So now I've got that linkage between the two sets of things. So InnoSlate is set up to be able to create any type of document. So you can import these different document templates. And by the way, we have a lot of those also on our share space, which is available off the resources page as well on our website. So take a look at that. We have many templates for different document types and things like that. That plus the built-in ones we have. And of course, you can create your own templates as you need to as well within the tool. So that's a great way to capture this information, make sure you're following it, tracking it, and then now it becomes very easy for people to see what you've done and how you've worked on it. And then you can give people the reviewer access for that. Again, additional documentation as you need to. You can add in a lot of the basic word processing things you want to do, like bold, italics, underlines, things like that. You can put in pictures. Of course, you can have diagrams from within the tool also to come into play. I'll show you that in a second. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this to create a really, it looks a lot like this original PowerPoint document, or this, I'm sorry, PDF document, but it'll look like this. So it's just a little different looking. It'll look more like an object database kind of approach, but still it gives you kind of a document feel. That's what we've done in Documents View. And so you can build all your documentation that way. And then you just establish the hyperlink between the image and the diagram. And I think right now we are starting to do that automatically now in the latest version. So hopefully as you embed your diagrams, the link will automatically create for you. So then now somebody just clicks on the picture and they go to the actual diagram, they can go in and see it and make specific comments about that diagram. Again, full digital traceability is what we're trying to do with this. So this gives us that ability to trace these other things, start identifying risks and decisions that need to be made. Those kinds of things as well can be associated with this. And of course, you can baseline your document. So when you get ready to do your review, you baseline the document pre-review, and you can give it that kind of information as the draft here, the pre-milestone A draft example here. And then once you have the comments taken care of and you're happy with the next version of it, you just create a new baseline. And you can go through that process as you need to help you develop it. So once you've got all the information in the database, now it's time to conduct the review itself. So let's talk about reviewing the models. So first, provide access to the reviewers. That's pretty easy. You just give them the read-only access that a reviewer has with the in the tool, in the project. So InnoSight projects have different roles you can assign people, and so reviewers have a read-only, but reviewers can also comment. So they're not just viewing the information, they read it, they can't change it, but they view the information. So that's what the reviewer is doing. So what the reviewer then does is post a comment on any object or diagram in the view, in the database, and then you can go back and forth with the reviewer even if you want to. The reviewers can use the chat functionality even if they want it, if you wanted to make this very interactive with your folks. And of course, you can always unshare people who you don't want to have access to the database later. So again, give them just a window into what you wanted them to see. With the cross-project relationships, you can set up a separate project even for that purpose. In fact, that's my next slide. So it allows redacted views. So if you want to hide information that's proprietary, a certain set of reviewers shouldn't see, that's fine. That's very easy to do. You know, so again, this can help you do this kind of thing as you need to. So a quick review process, basically developers can receive and respond instantly to what's going on, and that interaction between the team and the review team and developers gets to be closer. And I've participated in many reviews over my lifetime in this business, and it's there can be a bad dynamic between the reviewers and developers of the work. And that's what we try to avoid. So if we could get this to be a little closer, a little bit more communicative, maybe there's a better way to have the give and take you really need to have and get a better review as well in the process. So again, creating a comment summary is very easy. There's a comments report for that purpose. So it's an easy output. It's a nice tab spreadsheet that gives you the ability to all different entities, their descriptions and their comments. It's a very nice product that we can work with for that. And then also add an artifact workflow. So another thing you might want to consider is as you do this, you could create, there is a workflow capability within the tool. And so you can do that for artifacts, for example. So you use the subclass artifact, use the class artifact and create a status attribute associated with it. And then you can go use that. And so this idea of using the state diagram shows me my status states that I want to go to and how I want to go between things. That helps me organize it. And then as I go into the schema editor to create the workflow, I just go into that and then and again add in this artifact for status, those status enumerations that are here. So you can see that in this set of slides here. And by the way, slides will be available to you. So I'm going a little fast on purpose because I want to give Jerry a lot of time. And anyway, so workflow adds the transitions. Again, that's fairly easy to do in the workflow tool. And you can identify who you want to make the changes, give them the permissions, who's going to be then notified in the transitions, and if you want to lock the entity afterwards. So it can actually lock it so that it can't be easily changed afterwards. And again, this gives you that complete configuration control. This is an example of the workflow itself with the artifact now in these different statuses we just added. So again, that's a very easy thing to add in this, and we can show you how to do that. So that's a very quick and dirty kind of quick overview of our approach to it. But what I really want to do is now give some time to my friend Jerry Sellers, who's going to talk about the design review itself and the demo. So Jerry, I'm going to make you presenter.
All right, Steve.
And let's get you to set that up. Well, somebody's already doing it. Good. Okay. Somebody beat me to it.
All right. All right. Well, very good. Well, thank you, Steve. Thanks for inviting me to participate here today. This is one of my favorite topics. What I think are one of the really killer applications of model-based system engineering. You know, I teach Agile, and there's a saying in Agile, release on demand, with this idea that you can notionally release software kind of anytime. And I think what MBSE gives us is what I like to call review on demand. As Steve alluded, and I'm sure many of you can relate, Most design reviews are, multi-day, multi-week, multi-month efforts, killing a lot of PowerPoints, a lot of trees to make PowerPoint slides. I don't think we need to be doing that, and that from an agile standpoint, that pushes feedback, way to the right. From an agile standpoint, we want to move feedback to the left. We'd like to be able to review basically anytime, and that's where I think we want to go. And I think MBSE starts to empower us to do that. So I'm going to show you. This is actually an excerpt from our model-based system engineering course, and we do a mock design review as part of that. And what I'm going to do is just kind of talk you through how we introduce that, and then I'll jump over to the tool and I'll show the live model that we have set up for that. So I've been doing quite a work on model-based reviews for actually years. And this semester, one of my graduate students, Gianna Ortiz, who couldn't join us today, but I'll call out to her because she's been helping me with some of this work. So a lot of this is pretty new, and we keep evolving ways to do it as we learn. So this inception for this really started a number of years ago. Our company did a project for NASA Johnson Space Center where it was called SEPMAP, System Engineering and Project Management Advancement Program. And they handpicked 20 engineers from around Johnson Space Center, and they had an 18-month development program. They're only part-time, they were working, but 18 months. But in that 18 months, they had to design, build, test, deliver, and operate a system, which turned out to be a sample return payload that flew on a hexcopter. And down at Johnson Space Center, they have this place called the Mars Yard, where they had to go fly and pick up a sample. It's really just a big field full of rocks, but Mars Yard sounds cooler, so that's what they call it. But we made them do every single phase in the NASA handbook. So you had to do phase A, phase B, phase C. They had to do every design review, and so we didn't really cut them any slack because they had to really, do it basically by the book in terms of how NASA expects projects to be run. And the caveat we made was that they had to do everything 100% model-based, which was, actually you had to sometimes pry PowerPoint out of people's hands because they're like, what do you mean I can't use PowerPoint? We're like, nope, we're going to do it model-based. So as part of that, then we started developing ways to do model-based reviews. So a lot of the work here came out of that original work we did with NASA. And one of the first things you have to do is you're setting up model-based reviews, and Steve alluded to this in terms of criteria, is you have to think about how do you want to advance the maturity of your project. So I usually like to say that system engineering is a knowledge game. The object of the game is to get smarter over time. And we want to know how smart we should be when. And that's really what a review is, right? You're assessing how smart you are against some external criteria of how smart you should be at that point in the project. And so you advance through the traditional, project baselines, MCR, SRR, SDR, but they're tied to what we usually refer to as technical baselines, mission baseline, system baseline, et cetera. So on one side, on the left side here, we have our technical baselines, which is kind of measure how smart we are. And on the right side, we have our programmatic baselines, which is where are we in the project? And in an ideal world, they would be lined up, right? That when I'm at PDR, I'm actually at the design 2 baseline. And being at the design 2 baseline means I know all the things above that line. I have all those artifacts to find. And purposely, these are shown as kind of, document-based artifacts because that's how we've traditionally done it. So what we want to do is transform that into more of a model-based approach and take those documents, given that a document is simply an arbitrary wrapper of information, and pull the information out of the document, and that's what ought to be in the model. So we want to get away from the document concept, preserve the concept of the intelligence that's in the document, and then tie that to our model maturity. So as Steve said before, we need something to assess how well we're doing. And so we need some assessment criteria. And for this work, I've been using the NASA assessment criteria, which is in a NASA document called NPR 7123.1c, which you can readily find on the internet. I've reviewed lots of different organizations, DODs, Navies, criteria, and as you can expect, they're all very much similar. But I think NASA probably has one of the most complete sets. I won't say it's perfect, but it's actually pretty good. And I've been going through it a lot. There's something like over 300 different entrance and success criteria once you add up every review. But what's interesting when you start actually modeling it, you find some disconnects between the entrance criteria and success criteria. And so it's not quite perfect. But what it does, it says, I need you to know these things. It doesn't say how, and it doesn't necessarily organize these. It's kind of a laundry list of things we expect you to do. So if you're, in any project, you need to take these expectations from your stakeholders, and you need to turn those into products that are going to show them you know what you're doing. So that's, so that conceptually that's true whether you do it in documents or in a model. In a model, what we can do is zero in more on the granular level of information that we're trying to give to our stakeholders. So we use this as the criteria for the review templates we set up, and then through some other work I've done at Stevens, we've developed what we call the Lifecycle modeling framework. I don't have time to go into all that today, but if you're familiar with DODAF and UAF or TOGAF, this is a similar vein. It's a type of model. It's a framework for organizing information. So we wanted to come up with a simple framework that would allow you to organize information, like all those lists I just showed you, organize all that information in a specific way so I can present it back to people. So we have, and that's how we've organized the templates, which I'll show you. And then the red dot that's in the middle of that, in the LMF there, that's our assessment criteria. And that, as I looked at other architectural frameworks, what I found lacking is any assessment. Like how do you know you're done? DODAF, I like DODAF a lot, but how do I know I'm done? So we need to have some feedback loop there that shows what we're looking for. So we took all that information that we're creating as a model and we organized it around those 4 basic viewpoints, as you'll see. So then what we did is in Innoslate, we created templates like Steve just showed you that are organized around that lifecycle modeling framework and then tied to those entrance and success criteria. And then, because I teach a lot of MBSE classes, both to professionals and to graduate students, and so quite a bit of what we do is give people a template that includes kind of a starter model. So I have kind of starter diagrams that are generic and they're organized around this framework, and then the students can go, get started. So they don't start with a blank model. They start with kind of an outline, and things are organized for them. And there's some, starter diagrams that they can get started on, so they don't have to start from scratch. I find that people take to modeling much quicker when you can give them a little bit of a head start. But then we've organized the design review around that template. And to me, what the template does for you and what you're doing the model-based review is you have to lay out for your reviewers a breadcrumb trail to follow, right? If you've done traditional reviews, we usually do a document drop where you'll get dropped, a myriad of documents to go through, but usually nobody gives you a roadmap to how to find your way through all those documents. You got to just kind of figure it out on your own. Well, what we want to do is give people a specific roadmap so they know how to do the review. And then they can explore anything they want in the model, but they have they can always come back to that roadmap so they know what the big picture is in terms of what they're reviewing. So we laid out a review process, and I'll show you this live here in a bit. Well, we organized the template. We had you start with reviewing the context for the projects, we kind of background, and then you get into kind of an OR loop there where you say, well, where do you want to start? And this is if you think about different reviewers on a project, different reviewers have different perspectives, they have different expertise. In a broad sense, you might have one set of reviewers that's only going to be looking at programmatic type information, cost, schedule, risk, and then you have other sets of reviewers that are only going to be concerned about technical performance, those sort of issues, and then kind of everything in between. So you want the ability to sort of partition that so people can go to the information that they're their expertise on or that they want to provide feedback on. And again, this is divided out around those 4 viewpoints I showed you. So they can, I've got filters set up, as I'll show you, where you could go filter the information by those viewpoints. And then you can leave comments, as Steve C said, and we'll show you some comments. And then when you're done with all that, we kind of, as a wrap up, have you look at the actual success criteria, and then we make use of the intelligence view that's built into Innoslate as well. So when we did this, a version of this, it was actually an older version. We've come a long way since when we did it at NASA, but you can kind of see the feedback. And when we did this, again, we didn't do a document drop, we did a model drop about a week before the face-to-face review, well, a little more than a week. And then when we did the face-to-face review, all the presenters, all the team had to do was consolidate the comments, which, as you know, I can show you, it takes like 2 seconds to create the report. And then in the face-to-face review, they didn't regurgitate all the same information we'd already been through. What they did is focus on issues. So, but the only thing we asked them to do was take the comment report and go in and color code it, you know, red, yellow, green. And what we did in the review is focus on the red things, and then got to the yellows, and you know, we didn't really need to talk about the greens because they were fine. So if you've been in a design review, I tend to find we spend an inordinate amount of time violently agreeing with each other, which doesn't really, you know, move the ball down the field. You know, what we need to be doing is focusing on the things that are issues, not the things that are not issues. So this helps to filter that out, and it cut the review time just crazy amount. So we did a kind of little notional way of looking at what, you know, the difference between a paper-based review and a model-based review. And you can see our little graph there on the bottom. And you know, unfortunately, there's no way to perfectly quantify this, because you can't really do a design of experiments where you do it one way and then the other and control for all the other variables. But what I would tend to find from having done lots of traditional reviews is that you spend about half your time finding the stuff you want to review, which leaves you, then you spend a bunch of time what I'll call consistency checking, you know, convincing yourself that what's in document A is the same thing that's in document B, which leaves you a relatively small portion of time to actually provide useful feedback. When we're doing a model-based review, finding stuff is now trivial because we've already organized the information in advance around the entire review process, around the criteria that we're using. Consistency checking is also basically trivial because it's all coming from the same model, so I don't have to be concerned about multiple sources of truth here, which means the time spent is way more value added, not just, you know, going through endless documents. So that's been our experience with that. And then, so we actually have a process. So this is how we step through in the class, but I'll just go through and show you in the live model. And what we would do, and I'll show you this at the end, but within Innoslate, there's this capability called intelligence view. And these model maturity metrics were developed by a colleague of ours, Kristen Giamarco, who's a professor at Naval Postgraduate School and at Stevens. And she came up with about 80 criteria for assessing the internal consistency of your model. And some of them are, I'd say, you know, kind of trivial, like, hey, did you start with a capital letter? But some of them are pretty important, like you have parents without children or children without parents. So it looks for a whole bunch of things in your model. And what I, you know, try to emphasize as we do this with people is, you know, before you actually went to get people to review it, I think it's incumbent on the modeler to use tools like this to ensure that they've gotten rid of all the model inconsistencies, or at least all the ones that, you know, that matter. So this to me is another filter that you'd want to use, you know, before doing the review. When in the class, I usually do this after, just as a discussion point. But realize that, you know, what we want to do is have tools do as much work for us, you know, things that computers are good at and things that humans are terrible at. Let's get the computer to do that. Let it find all the action, all the, you know, functions that don't begin with a verb and things like that, so I can fix that in advance of my actual review. Again, currently computers are good at finding inconsistencies, you know, what we might call, you know, the bolognium in our model, but it still takes humans to decide if we're building it out of unobtainium, you know. So far computers can't tell if it's the right tool or if the right design. They can only tell us that there's inconsistencies in the design, but together we and computers can do great things. And that's what we're trying to do, is figure out how to, you know, leverage these capabilities to the greatest extent possible. So let me go to the demo. We'll go over to go live here. So this is the, let me just kind of go here. So this is our model that we have. So this is built around a CubeSat example. So we have a 3U CubeSat that we're using as an example system of interest here. And so we have people go into the template. So we created this template here, and we can, you notice there's in Innoslate there's this ability to add labels, and so we can go over here and filter by label. So you might start with the mission concept, and so you'd simply filter just the mission concept, and you could read through the overview. You could see what the value stream concept is for this mission, what the basic architecture is, what the basic ConOps looks like. Again, all these diagrams are live from the model. So if you change them in the model, they get updated here automatically. So that way I can focus, because we all, humans, we can only focus on so many things at once, so I can look at just the concept, mission concept, and say, okay, I now understand the mission. If I wanted to, I could then go look at what we call the opportunity viewpoint. And then the opportunity viewpoint now looks at things like our stakeholders. So I have a stakeholder context diagram. And then we have, you'll see a lot of use of embedded tables. This is a relatively new feature in Innoslate, which I just love, that you can now embed live tables. So if you change the data in the model, it'll change it in the table. A lot of times it's, I love diagrams, but sometimes you need the detail that's in a table. So together I think it's pretty powerful. So you can see stakeholder descriptions. We get to our concept, our objectives and key results, and then we get down to something like requirements. And I have a requirements diagram there, and you obviously can't read that. And of course, I tell people one of the first things I teach in model-based system engineering is that the tools will allow you to create diagrams that no one can read. And that's great, but we have to figure out how to make them useful. So if I really wanted to look at my requirements, I've got a hyperlink here, and I can actually go over to my requirements document, and now I can go through the requirements document here, and I could go read every requirement I wanted. I could check the intelligence or the quality score. I could leave comments there. So I have the ability to navigate around the model, but I can then still come back over here. So I have all my requirements, my key performance parameters, which I manage with a label, and then we have our and then you notice here I start tying in our entrance criteria. So this is what we did is took that laundry list of stuff from NASA and said, okay, all those things which are being satisfied by this viewpoint. And so these are the actual criteria this is for a mission concept review, which is a pre-phase A review. And so we have the first 3 columns there right out of the book from NASA. And then we put a rationale there that says, here's how we think we've addressed that. Right. So if I'm I'm the person presenting to you as my reviewer, here's my evidence that I've met those entrance criteria. You want to know about the expectations, you can find it in LMF.1.2 with stakeholder expectations and key results, and in LMF 1.3. So it's kind of telling you where to go find the information and why I think that we're ready for this review. I'll just do one more. So we could go to the solution viewpoint. And so we could go through things like trade studies, analysis of alternatives, which you do in the solution. You got hyperlinks, hyperlink to another website in case there's information there. I start getting into functional architectures and of our system. And then we start getting into the physical. We have our allocation matrices, our ConOps. Here's our I/I matrix for interfaces. And notice now we finally get into no kidding drawings. So here's a CAD drawing of our satellite we're building. Obviously this is an image, but the CAD model itself could live in the tool. In fact, they've got a built-in CAD viewer that we could use there, and you can then link that kind of external information, external model information directly in here. I like to think of MBSE as the model of the models. All right, there's going to be lots and lots of other models, CAD models, ECAD models, dynamics models, system toolkit, all kinds of stuff that I might want to be able to tie to, but this is going to get me there. This is how I'm going to approach that. And then again, we have our entrance criteria there. And then finally, we'd wrap up with our success criteria. And so we go through here, and here's all the success criteria broken up by scope, technical approach, safety and mission assurance, and project management approach. And we put our own rationale there for why we think we pass each of those things. And then obviously it's up to the reviewer to decide if they agree or not. If the reviewer wants to leave a comment, They would click anywhere they want to leave a comment, and there's a comment tool up here. I can type new comment. If I could spell today, new comment. And so that's my comment there. And then the comments get collected. You can see them back here on the dashboard. So here's the comment I just made. And then I left in comments from the last time we taught this class. And so as a, as the model owner, I can go look at this person's comment. He said stakeholder expectations well defined, so I can click there, and it takes me right to where that comment was. I can resolve that comment. I can edit it. I can delete it. So I can help disposition those comments. And then when the review is all done, I can go over and generate a comment report. Where to go? Create a comment report that just takes a second. And now I have an Excel file that gives me all the comments that were ever made, when they were made, who made them, and what their disposition is. You can see here we've been doing a lot of comments in this one, so I don't expect to be able to read all that. But now I can keep track of the disposition of each of those, and I have a whole history of all the comments. So I think it's it's a fairly powerful set of tools that we have here, and using some of the built-in features of Innosight, we've been able to do some fairly unique stuff in terms of how to get people to get focused on the right things at the right time. And if you imagine, I said, kind of doing review on demand, notionally you could have your reviewers looking at this kind of any time and leaving comments as you go. Obviously there's issues you have to worry about in terms of data partitioning and access and things like that. But generally speaking, what we're trying to do is collect a bunch of information and organize it in a way that people can review it and comment and understand what's happening and give us feedback on how the project is progressing. So with that, Steve, I'll turn it back over to you, and then I guess we'll hopefully have time for some questions.
All right, thank you, Dr. Damon, Dr. Sellers. We've already received a couple of questions. If you haven't done so, please send your questions through the panel on the right. Feel free to ask as many questions as you have, and they will answer as many questions as they can before the time is up. So our first question is Innosight available to university students?
Yes, that's an easy one. It's just sign up with your .edu in the sign up sheet. On the sign up page, and you immediately you start using the academic version, which is the complete version. It actually has more entities than the demo version for you to use. And if your professors are interested in it, they can contact us as well. We have an instructor kit that we send you, the professor, and a variety of other things that will help you get them started, including we can set up an organization for the specific university. So yeah, we provide a lot of support. I think we're in over 200 universities around the world right now. So.
Thank you. Our next question is, can you use Innosight for model-based reviews with the enterprise version?
Yes, absolutely. It works the same way, and again, it's just the access. You have to give access of the reviewers to your network that you have it on, that you can and give them those accounts. But yeah, otherwise it's the same thing as the cloud.
Our next question is, can you customize the Intelligence View tool to your organization's needs?
Yes, and it has all kinds of options for how you want to adjust it in terms of what level you consider the area of concern. Like if you say that I don't care that everything has all the actions begin with a verb, you can get rid of that particular one and just ignore it as one of the things that's tracked. So it's very easy to do.
Our next question is, how are digital engineering and model-based reviews connected?
So the whole idea in digital engineering is that the database becomes that authoritative source of truth, and you have the information already there. So now what we want to do is be able to review it there and adjust it there, so that we not lose that results of those reviews. Because you know how it is as things progress. The idea of digital engineering is it isn't the first time through the cycle that you're worrying about. It's that whole fact that you repeat that cycle over and over sometimes over decades. So for a system, and so it's important to be able to capture that history of all the things that have been made and suggested over time even. So in a review, maybe somebody had a really good idea you couldn't implement in version 1, but you're in version 20 now. You can possibly implement it, and then that would be something you could add in as you need to. So there's a lot of things that will help you with doing this model-based reviews and digital engineering together.
Thank you. Our next question is there a way to trial the collaboration features in InnoSlate?
Yes, just ask sales. They'll be glad to help you get set up with a full up demo, as well as the regular demo version.
And our next question is, can users work simultaneously on the same project?
Yeah, yes, it's designed for that collaborative activity.
Thank you. We'll give everyone just another second if there's any other questions before we wrap up the webinar. So please, if you have any questions, just answer or ask them over in the questions to the right.
And while we're waiting for that, I just want to let people know we're also looking at a reviewer version of the tool and some activities where the reviewers could suggest changes. They can't actually edit and make changes, but they could suggest changes, which then could be accepted by the owner of the project, and that's something that's in the works as well. So there are more things we're doing in this area to try to make improvements and make it easier for you, and to help you with the reviews and configuration management, things like that.
All right, that's going to conclude the question and answer portion of our webinar. We would like to thank you again for joining us for today's webinar. Make sure to join us next time for our next webinar, Developing Digital Twins, on June 8th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, we will also send the recording and slide deck to everyone that attended today. For more resources, we encourage you to visit our website and our blog, as well as connect with us on social media through the InnoSlate user group or through Twitter using the handle @InnoSlate. That concludes today's presentation. Thank you again for your attendance, and we hope to see you again at our next webinar. Please enjoy the rest of your day.